Good evening from Seoul, Korea. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And I will start this webinar with a short introduction, after which I will present a video. Our theme today is No Peace Without Justice for Tai Ji Men. It's not a slogan, it's a philosophical proposition, a moral imperative, a political challenge. And to understand its full weight, I will start not with Taiwan, not with Tai Ji Men, but with a 96-year-old German thinker whose work has shaped our understanding of peace and justice in the modern world, Jürgen Habermas. Habermas is a secular philosopher who acknowledged the relevance of religion in public life, a subject on which he maintained a lifelong dialogue with Pope Benedict XVI. Habermas, one of the most influential philosophers of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, is best known for his theory of communicative action and his defense of deliberative democracy. But beneath his contributions lies a deeper ethical architecture that draws heavily from another German philosopher, Immanuel Kant. Like Kant, Habermas believes peace is not simply the absence of war or conflict. Peace is the product of justice. It is the outcome of institutions and practices that respect human dignity, uphold the rule of law, and foster mutual recognitions among citizens. In his writing on international law and global governance, Habermas argues that peace cannot be imposed from above or negotiated through power alone. It must emerge from a shared commitment to justice. This means that peace is not a precondition of justice. It is the consequence of justice. Where justice is denied, peace is fragile. Where justice is upheld, peace becomes possible. This inversion of conventional wisdom, according to which peace leads to justice, is crucial. It reminds us that calls for reconciliation, harmony, or stability must not come at the expense of truth, accountability, or fairness. It warns us against the temptation to silence dissent in the name of unity or to overlook injustice in the name of social harmony. And it invites us to see peace not as a geopolitical arrangement, but as a moral achievement. Let us now turn to Taiwan, a vibrant democracy, a cultural crossroads, and a geopolitical flashpoint. Taiwan has long sought peace, peace with its neighbors, peace within its borders, peace in its international standing. And yet, as Habermas will remind us, peace cannot be pursued in isolation from justice. It must be grounded in the ethical treatment of all citizens, including those who belong to spiritual minorities. And this brings us to the case of Tai Ji Men, a respected menpai of Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation. Tai Ji Men has been subject to a decades-long ordeal that began with politically motivated repression in 1996 and continues to this day through the unjust consequences of a fabricated tax bill for the year 1992. Despite a final victory at the Supreme Court of Taiwan in 2007, which declared Tai Ji Men innocent of all charges, including tax evasion, rogue bureaucrats within the National Taxation Bureau have refused to implement that ruling fully. They have clung to a technicality, maintaining a tax bill that contradicts legal precedent and factual truth. This has led to seizure, unsuccessful auction and nationalization of Tai Ji Men's sacred land, the obstruction of religious freedom, the erosion of public trust. Now, one may ask me, but what does all this have to do with peace and the International Day of Peace? And the answer is everything. The Tai Ji Men case is not only a legal anomaly, it is a moral failure. It represents denying justice to a community that has consistently promoted peace through cultural diplomacy, international engagement, and the symbolic ringing of the bell of war, peace, and love. Tai Ji Men has participated in thousands of events across over 100 countries, spreading messages of conscience, harmony, and human dignity. And yet, at home in Taiwan, it remains the target of institutional injustice. This contradiction is not sustainable. A society cannot credibly advocate for peace while tolerating injustice. It cannot build bridges with the world while burning bridges with its own citizens. And it cannot claim moral leadership while denying moral redress. Habermas will call this a failure of a communicative rationality, a breakdown in the dialogue between state and society, between law and conscience. Habermas would urge us to restore that dialogue, not through compromise, but through justice. He will remind us that the legitimacy of any legal system depends not only on its procedures, but also on its responsiveness to truth. Resolving the Tai Ji Men case is not a matter of administrative housekeeping. It is a test of Taiwan's commitment to justice, a measure of its democratic maturity, and a prerequisite for the kind of peace that the United Nations International Day of Peace celebrates, not a peace of silence, but a peace of dignity. Let us remember Habermas' lesson. Peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. Peace is not a gift from the powerful, it is a right of the vulnerable. Tai Ji Men has endured justice with dignity, has responded to repression with compassion, has turned suffering into service. Now it is time for the Taiwanese state to respond in kind. It is time to pursue peace through justice and justice through truth. In the moral architecture of democracy, no stone is more foundational than the conscience of its citizens. And with these words, I conclude my introduction and I present a video with the message of United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres for the International Day of Peace, an International Day of Peace which this year occurs amidst war.
Our warring world is crying out for peace. This year's International Day of Peace urges each of us to give voice to that call. Around the world, lives are being ripped apart, childhoods extinguished, and basic human dignity discarded amidst the cruelty and degradations of war. We are seeing an explosion of conflict, international law flouted, and record numbers of people fleeing their homes. All they want is peace. Peace is everyone's business. The impacts of war ripple around the world. We must silence the guns, end the suffering, build bridges, and create stability and prosperity. Sustainable development supports peace. 9 of the 10 countries struggling most with development are suffering conflict. And we must quell the racism, dehumanization, and misinformation that throw fuel on the fires of conflict. Instead, we must speak the language of respect, open our hearts to others, and use our influence to push for peace. Where we have peace, we have hope. Families unite, communities rebuild, children learn and play. Peace cannot wait. Our work starts now.
And now we continue our first session, and it is my pleasure to introduce Maria Varde, anthropologist, lecturer, and doctoral candidate at University of Buenos Aires, Argentina. Maria Varde, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Massimo, and hello, everybody. Every September 21st, the world observes the International Day of Peace, established by the United Nations General Assembly in 1981 as a moment for global reflection and commitment. In 2001, the UN permanently designated September 21st as a day of ceasefire and nonviolence. On this date, it is fitting to highlight the work of Tai Ji Men, a traditional menpai of Qigong, martial arts, and spiritual cultivation, founded in Taiwan by Dr. Hong Tao-se. Their approach combines physical practice and inner discipline with an emphasis on conscience, love, and justice, projecting peace as a process that begins within each person and extends to the community and the world. The pursuit of body, mind, and heart harmony becomes evident in Tai Ji Men's notion of Tufu of the heart, a discipline of attention and ethical refinement that seeks to unify heart and qi to moderate anger, cultivate clarity, and make harmonious coexistence possible. This approach aligns with what Johann Galton, pioneer of peace studies, called positive peace, not merely the absence of violence, but the active presence of justice, harmony, and conditions for human flourishing. For Tai Ji Men, peace begins within. It is trained and practiced in the family and becomes public in the community. In Tai Ji Men, this bridge between interiority and public life becomes visible on 3 levels: physical and spiritual formation with Qigong as emotional hygiene and discipline, cultural expressions with music, dance, and ceremonies, and symbolic civic action, including interreligious dialogues and international campaigns. None of this replaces political negotiations, but it contributes to an ecology of practices that makes sustained peace more likely to occur. An emblematic example is the Bell of War, Peace and Love, ranked by social and political leaders in various countries as a public gesture of commitment to peace. Despite their peaceful nature and advocacy for community well-being, Tai Ji Men faced serious accusations and affronts from state officials in the context of political persecution. In 1996, Dr. Hong and several DC were detained and violently interrogated under threats and mistreatment based on false criminal and tax accusations initiated by prosecutor Ho Guangshan. Defamation campaigns were deployed in the media, and many DC were discriminated against, fired from their shops, and marginalized by their families and friends. After a lengthy legal dispute, Taiwan's Supreme Court definitely acquitted Tai Ji Men defendants in 2007. There have never been fraud or tax evasion, and the disciples' gifts to the master were recognized as non-taxable. But despite this, tax claims persisted years later, and in 2020, the state confiscated sacred land intended for a spiritual cultivation center, originating from a controversial 1992 tax assessment. However, despite constant physical and psychological attacks from a predatory bureaucracy, Tai Ji Men always chose the path of peace, maintaining a positive and creative agenda. The movement and its supporters have actively participated in spaces linked to the UN Human Rights Council and numerous international forums where they denounced the abuses suffered in Taiwan and connected Tai Ji Men's experiences to the need to defend freedom of conscience globally. DC have also conducted peaceful public demonstrations to advance its cause. But it wasn't all denunciation. During these same years, Tai Ji Men continued promoting cultural festivals, interreligious encounters, and educational programs where adults, children, and young people learned the values of harmony, cooperation, and mutual respect. Comparative anthropology has clearly shown that peace becomes sustainable and effective when societies establish mechanisms of reciprocity, dialogue, and understanding to process their conflicts. It's not just about avoiding open confrontations, but building trust in fair treatment and a sense of shared community. These conditions are essential for abolishing multiple forms of violence and ultimately reveal that justice is the indispensable foundation of all lasting peace. Without justice, there is no absence of violence, and without the absence of violence, there can be no true peace. This understanding aligns with contemporary peace research, which emphasizes that sustainable conflict resolution requires not only formal agreements, but also the cultivation of a culture of peace defined by UNESCO as values, attitudes, and behaviors that favor dialogue and cooperation over violence. The Tai Ji Men case illustrates how spiritual communities can act as living laboratories of peace-building practices, maintaining constructive engagement even when confronted with institutional hostility. While subjected to discrimination and arbitrary confiscations, Tai Ji Men DC dedicated themselves to sowing awareness and peace, maintaining coherence between their spiritual convictions and public actions. The contrast is eloquent. Where justice failed and broke civic trust, the movement responded with nonviolent discipline, reminding us that peace is not passivity or resignation, but ethical constructivism and action. Nearly 30 years have passed since the attacks on Tai Ji Men began. During the 3 decades, Taiwan sought to consolidate itself as a democratic state open to the liberal world and international dialogue. On the global stage, it advocates for peace among peoples and constructive cooperation. To achieve true harmony and direct all its energy toward the future, Taiwan would do well to hear Tai Ji Men's teachings and resolve the pending injustices. After all, lasting peace is only possible if it is first cultivated at home, if it goes from the inside out. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. And now we have the second speaker of the first session. That's Davide Suleiman Amore, who is an Italian historian, and he also is secretary of the Islamic Association As Salam, and a member of the Italian Society for the History of Religion. So, Davide, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, whatever you are. Well, thanks again for being here with you. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, dear Dizzy, it is an honor to share with you some reflections on the theme, No Peace Without Justice, through the lens of the great Muslim historian and philosopher Ibn Khaldun, and in dialogue with the contemporary case of the Tai Ji Men spiritual movement. Ibn Khaldun, writing in the 14th century, famously argued that injustice is the surest path to the destruction of civilization. Peace, in his view, was not merely the absence of war, but the presence of justice. And this insight speaks powerfully to our own time, especially when we consider prolonged injustice such as those suffered by the Tai Ji Men community. In his Muqaddimah, Ibn Khaldun laid down one of the most influential analyses of history and society. At its heart is the idea of asabiya, social cohesion, the solidarity that enables communities to flourish. Yet he also insisted that this cohesion depends on justice. He warned rulers against corruption, arbitrary taxation, and the abuse of authority, for these acts undermine legitimacy and fracture the social bond. He wrote, and I quote in summary, when rulers impose unjust taxes, confiscate property without right, or fabricate accusations, they erode trust. Once the people lose confidence in justice, the foundations of the state begin to crumble. Injustice, Ibn Khaldun declared, is not only morally wrong, it is a sociological poison. Thus, for him, peace was inseparable from justice. A community cannot live in harmony of its members if its members are subjected to false accusations, economic exploitation, or denial of their rights. This theoretical framework is strikingly relevant to the case we are discussing today. The Tai Ji Men case is one of the most persistent examples of injustice in recent decades. For those who may not be familiar, let me briefly recall its main stages. In 1996, during Taiwan's presidential election, Tai Ji Men and its leader, Dr. Hong Tao-tse, became targets of fabricated accusations of tax evasion and fraud. The charges were politically motivated and entirely baseless. After years of legal proceedings, the criminal courts, including Taiwan's Supreme Court, declared Tai Ji Men of all accusations. They affirmed that there was no tax evasion, no fraud, and no violation of law. Yet, despite this clear judicial ruling, the National Taxation Bureau persisted in issuing tax bills against Tai Ji Men for multiple years, relying on the original false accusation. This persistence of injustice is explicitly what Ibn Khaldun described: the corruption of power when a state or its agents refuse to respect justice even after the truth has been established. The injustice did not stop at paperwork. In 2020, after years of struggle, government agency carried out an unlawful seizure and auctioning of Tai Ji Men's land intended for spiritual and cultural purposes. This was not only a violation of property rights, it was an assault on the dignity and freedom of a spiritual community. What is most striking in Ibn Khaldun's terms is the long-term damage such injustice inflicts. The erosion of trust in institutions, the sense that the rule of law is being hollowed out, and the perception that truth and fairness can be sacrificed for political or bureaucratic expediency. Here, Ibn Khaldun's insights help us see why the Tai Ji Men case matters far beyond the borders of Taiwan. When injustice becomes systemic, when fabricated accusations are maintained despite judicial acquittal, when wrongful taxation becomes a weapon against a peaceful spiritual community, society as a whole is harmed. Ibn Khaldun warned that injustice leads to decline because it breaks the moral contract between rulers and the ruled. Citizens or communities who see their rights trampled lose confidence in government, solidarity factors, and the legitimacy of authority collapses. Applied to Tai Ji Men, we can say, this is not merely a tax dispute. It is about whether justice, the foundation of peace, can prevail over entrenched bureaucratic wrongdoing. It is about whether a society values truth and fairness enough to repair the wrongs inflicted upon innocent people. Thus, the lesson is clear. Peace cannot be proclaimed while injustice persists. To ignore such injustices is to cause social unrest, spiritual alienation, and the corrosion of civil trust. To restore justice, however, is to rebuild peace, both within the affected community and within the larger society. In closing, allow me to return to Ibn Khaldun's timeless principle. Injustice ruins civilization. This is not just a medieval reflection. It is a living truth that speaks directly to the challenges of our own time. The Tai Ji Men case exemplifies the danger of ignoring this truth. If injustice is allowed to persist, even after the courts have spoken, then peace remains hollow. But if justice is finally restored, then reconciliation, harmony, and social trust can be renewed. No peace without justice is not a slogan. It is a law of history, as Ibn Khaldun taught us. And it is a call to action today to stand with the victims of injustice, to insist on truth, and to recognize that peace only blossoms where justice has taken root. Thank you, 谢谢.
So thank you for this session where we spoke from 3 different continents, South America, Asia, and Europe, and traveled through different culture, European secularity, Christianity, and Islam. And with this session concluded, it is my pleasure to pass ideally the podium to Willy Fautré, who will introduce the second video and then the second session.
Thank you, Massimo. And as you said, as usual, this second session will be devoted to exchange with the Dizzy and their thoughts about the topic of the day. But first, we will start with a video that will tell us what a number of presidents of Taiwan think on the contribution of Tai Ji Men to society.
For the past 35 years since its founding, your esteemed organization has upheld its objectives of loyalty, filial piety, love of the country, and love of society, uniting like-minded people to promote martial arts, traditional culture, and good social values. It's admirable.
Tai Ji Men is an ancient menpai of Qigong and martial arts passed down from generation to generation. It's like a big warm family. All Dizi are energetic and healthy physically and mentally. Under Zhang Menzhen's leadership, the Dizi not only practice self-cultivation, but also spread kindness to help the world. Through international culture exchanges, they foster love for the world, promoting the idea of love and peace worldwide. On behalf of the government, I would like to take this opportunity to extend my utmost respect and gratitude to you once again. Thank you for your long-term efforts and contributions to our country and society.
Every time we see Tai Ji Men, we see energy, warmth, and love. We all admire Dr. Hong's compassion and would like to see Tai Ji Men practice this worldwide. Let Taiwan stand out and let the world come in.
Under the Zhang Menren's leadership, Tai Ji Men has actively participated in international events, conducted citizen diplomacy, and raised Taiwan's global visibility. In the future, I also hope that Tai Ji Men under Dr. Hong's leadership will continue to work with the government. Let us use our positive influence and move Taiwan forward with continued progress. Let the world see Taiwan.
Well, these are encouraging words, but unfortunately, they were not followed by concrete actions, which I mean justice for Tai Ji Men. And before sharing the podium, as you said, Massimo, with the Dizzy, I would like to share with you an introduction about the topic social justice, a bulwark against violence. Peace is often portrayed as a lofty, almost utopian aspiration. Yet history consistently shows that peace is fragile and unsustainable when justice is absent. The Tai Ji Men case is therefore a litmus test for Taiwan. If the authorities cannot guarantee that justice be done in the case of this peaceful and law-abiding spiritual movement, less peaceful groups in the country may decide to resort to violence to resolve their disputes with the state. In this regard, Tai Ji Men contributes to social peace and stability, while Taiwanese state takes the risk to jeopardize it by not doing full justice to a movement teaching and preaching love and peace in society. Tai Ji Men's message is that sustainable peace requires a deliberate commitment to fairness, accountability, and inclusive governance. Justice in the domestic context means more than the fair application of laws. It encompasses equality before the law, equitable access to opportunities, protection of rights, and the dismantling of systemic inequalities. When justice is compromised, social peace quickly erodes, giving way to unrest, instability, and cycles of conflict. Obviously, in the case of Tai Ji Men, the laws governing the taxation system in the country urgently need to be deeply reviewed. Indeed, they provide loopholes with open avenues to manipulation, injustice, and corruption. The Tai Ji Men case also highlights intentional discrimination by a state institution, the will of the tax administration to punish someone who tries to defend one's rights and to seek justice. The main actor behind the campaign targeting Tai Ji Men is Prosecutor who has abused his mandate to persecute the spiritual movement founded by Dr. Hong. His behavior was investigated by the Control Yuan in 2002. The conclusion was that he had been guilty of 8 major violations of the law concerning Tai Ji Men and other cases, which led to dramatic consequences. The judicial Rambo, as he was nicknamed, indicted about 200 defendants, including 3 prosecutors and 38 police officers. In the famous Zhu Renshen case, 4 of the accused police officers committed suicide during the investigation. 8 out of 38 were convicted, and the highest ranking police officers that Prosecutor Hu had accused were declared innocent in their respective final court decisions. Due to loopholes in the legislation that he could exploit, Prosecutor Hu was never prosecuted and remained unpunished. Result: judicial impunity. It is tempting for governments to frame peace as a matter of security, policing, surveillance, or military preparedness. However, peace enforced through coercion is temporary and brittle. True social peace arises from legitimacy, which depends on justice. For this reason, justice is a domestic responsibility that must be prioritized. This includes legislative justice, passing laws that reflect fairness, equality, and human rights. Judicial justice, maintaining courts that operate independently and without corruption. Administrative justice, ensuring that government services are delivered equitably without discrimination or favoritism. When these functions are compromised, when laws are unjust, courts are biased, or government services are distributed unequally, social tension rise. Citizens begin to view the state not as a protector, but as a perpetrator of injustice, eroding the foundation of peace. This is the feeling of thousands of Dizi. Fortunately for Taiwan, Dizi are non-violent, but the seeds of potential violence exist in other segments of society. It is therefore urgent for the Taiwanese state to establish an inventory of dysfunctions in its taxation administration and to work on deep reforms in the realm of legislative, judicial, and administrative justice. Tai Ji Men is ready to contribute to make the state healthier than it is now. And now I will finally give the floor to the disease, who must be very impatient to share their views and also their personal experience. So the first speaker will be Sandy Ho from a university student. Floor is yours.
Distinguished hosts and panelists, good day. Today is the United Nations International Day of Peace. The UN calls upon all people, amidst turbulence and uncertainty, to take concrete actions against violence, hatred, discrimination, and inequality, and instead to respect one another and embrace diversity. To me, this is not a distant global issue, but a matter of daily choices and actions. I grew up in Tai Ji Men, which has been like a treasure house of life lessons. In my childhood, I had the opportunity to practice the mighty drum's formation. In the process of training, I learned to collaborate with fellow brothers and sisters, move in unity, and courageously stand on stage to share positive thoughts with all the audiences. This experience not only taught me to be brave, but also gave me confidence. By exchanging views with elder brothers and sisters of different age groups, I have broadened my horizons and learned to see things from others' viewpoints. Following my Shifu's teachings and example, I gradually realized that what we do is not only for ourselves, but for all people and to make the world a better place. Through his example, his words, and even his silent teachings, my Shifu has widely spread his love for the world, leading his disciples to different countries to promote love and peace. In this process, I have also witnessed the power of learning by doing and gaining insight through practice. What has influenced me the most is my Shifu's teaching of self-reflection and shifting one's mindset. Life is full of challenges, and emotional ups and downs are inevitable. But when I learned to first calm my heart and view difficulties as opportunities for growth, even if the external situation did not change immediately, my attitude and actions shift, and eventually the outcomes followed. This practice has not only helped me find balance in my studies and daily life, but also taught me to prioritize conscience and to be more understanding and tolerant in relationships. The International Day of Peace speaks of global peace, while what I learned at Tai Ji Men is this: when the seed of conscience sprouts in each person's heart, peace can be realized between people. With these mindsets, in August 2023, I traveled with my Shifu and fellow brothers and sisters to Chicago, United States, to participate in the 113th anniversary of the Parliament of World's Religions. The theme, A Call to Conscience, Defending Freedom and Human Rights, echoed perfectly with the movement of an era of conscience promoted by my Shifu for many years. During the Parade of Faith, I played the role of a peacock, carrying in my heart the thought, with one heart, bring peace to all. When my eyes met those of the people along the road, their smiles and responses made me feel kindness flowing between us. In the ancestral blessing ceremony, I played the role of an angel. As I danced to the music, my heart grew calm, and I sincerely offered prayers and blessings for the world. During rehearsal, an audience member approached us and said, "Your smiles are what this world needs the most." Those words deeply touched me. I realized that a genuine smile can indeed transcend language and culture, reaching directly into people's hearts. During the event, we set up a tree of life in the exhibition area and collected over 500 prayer cards. Reading each heartfelt wish, I feel that peace is not far away. It exists in every act of kindness and every prayer. Tai Ji Men, a 门派 of Qigong, martial arts, and self-cultivation, has suffered human rights violations since December 1996. Despite the case of dedication to promoting love and peace worldwide, in 2007, the Supreme Court delivered a final ruling declaring that Tai Ji Men was innocent, owed no taxes, and had not violated the Tax Collection Act. In 2019, the National Taxation Bureau even corrected 5 out of 6 unlawful tax bills to 0, yet one unlawful bill was still left unresolved, and our secured land intended for a spiritual practice center was illegally seized and auctioned, which seriously infringed upon the human rights of my shifu and disciples. Over the years, Tai Ji Men has been widely recognized both at home and abroad, and has continued to push for reform on the road of legal and tax justice. I have come to clearly realize peace is not merely the absence of war, but also the presence of justice, fairness, and dignity. This echoes SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Only when those in power exercise their authority with conscience can human rights and justice be upheld. I sincerely hope the government will face and correct the unlawful auction of our land, so that the true spirit of the International Day of Peace may be realized in Taiwan and become a model for the world. If I were to leave one closing thought today, it would be this: let conscience guide our actions, and let peace begin from the heart. Though I'm just an university student, I'm willing to start with myself, making conscience my guiding principle in everything I do. When more people commit to this, the seeds of peace will grow into the forest to shelter our turbulent world. Finally, may we all be the ones willing to take the first step in our own lives. May conscience become our common language, and may love and peace be practiced not only today, but every day. Thank you.
And thank you, Sandy, for sharing with us your thoughts. And I will quote two of them, which I think should resonate in our minds. First, you said, when the seed of conscience sprouts in each person's heart, peace can be realized between people. And the second one, peace is not merely the absence of war, but it also includes the presence of justice, fairness, and dignity. And during one of your travels with Tai Ji Men, someone told you, and I quote him, your smiles are what this world needs the most, unquote. And then you understood that a smile can transcend language and culture, reaching directly into people's hearts. And thank you again for sharing your feelings on the day, on this day's issue. Now the second speaker will be Hun Han Chen, a homemaker. Hun Han Chen.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed hosts, distinguished guests, and friends joining us online. Many people ask, what is peace really? For me, peace is not some far off lofty idea. It's something real we can feel in daily life. When family members understand one another, when neighbors help each other, or when after a long day we sit down and feel calm inside. Peace is not just a slogan, it is the simple life ordinary people long for every day. It begins with inner tranquility, grows in our families, spreads to our communities, and finally reaches the world. I am Hong An Chen, a homemaker from a single parent family. Growing up, I often felt tense and pessimistic, easily affected by negative thoughts. When difficulties came, I used to choose avoidance rather than face them directly. These experiences shaped me with a sense of insecurity, often feeling that I was not good or strong enough. But these challenges also became the starting point of my journey to rediscover inner strength. After marriage, an unexpected pregnancy pushed me into overwhelming fear. The responsibility of becoming a mother felt both unfamiliar and heavy. I was filled with anxiety and doubt, unsure whether I could truly take on a role of a good mother. Fortunately, through a close high school friend, I joined Tai Ji Men Qigong Academy. With each breath in and out, I and under the patient guidance of my Shifu Hong Daozhi, my heart gradually became calm. I began to face fears with courage, and this transformation gave me the strength to stand here today, sharing my story with all of you. Through the process of practicing Qigong, I deeply realized the importance of inner peace. When my child was born, I experienced severe postpartum depression, sometimes even gripped by inexplicable fear. At one point, when my baby cried unconsciously for 3 days and nights, I barely slept at all. My mind and my body were pushed to the edge of collapse. During that difficult time, my Tai Chi Men brothers and sisters selflessly helped care for my baby, giving me time to practice and regain calm. Their support and companionship allowed me to once again feel the warmth of the human heart. To me, this is the most genuine expression of the power of peace in everyday lives. A few years ago, my husband was suddenly laid off just before the Lunar New Year. Our family's finances were thrown into crisis. In the past, I would have been overwhelmed by despair. But because of the strength I gained from Qigong, I faced it with a positive and proactive mindset, believing that even the greatest difficulties could be overcome. This told me that true peace is not just external stability, but also the ability to maintain calm and hope inside. At Tai Ji Men, Shifu teaches us that besides taking care of our own body, mind, and spirit, we should also help society. I often bring my children to volunteer with an alliance for tax reform, distributing leaflets to share human rights and tax education with more people, because the Tai Ji Men case is not an isolated incident. If the government does not reform tax policies, more innocent people will suffer. Though small, these actions raise awareness of fairness and justice, foundations of social peace. Why do I find peace in Tai Ji Men? Because Shifu always reminds us, peace begins with every person's conscience and love, and it must be lived out in daily life. True peace comes from choices and actions we practice every day. Though Tai Ji Men has suffered from persecution and misunderstanding, these experiences sometimes make me hesitate to talk about my learning at Tai Ji Men to others. The inner peace I've found assures me that our community has always been delicate to love and peace. This is why I share my story, to share that peace is not just a slogan, but a tangible force in life. Looking at the world and conflicts continue in Russia and Ukraine. The fires of the war in the Middle East persist, filling people with fear. Tensions between India and Pakistan often flare up. This reminds us peace is never guaranteed. I believe most people in this world long for peace. Peace is not just the absence of war, but the presence of respect, justice, safety, and dignity for all. When each of us chooses to influence even one person with a calm and peaceful heart, the ripple of peace can spread far and wide. True peace begins within us, and when we live in our daily lives, world peace is no longer a distant dream, but a real and lasting possibility. That's when celebrating the International Day of Peace will really have deep and practical meaning. Within our families, we pass on respect and love. In society, we replace conflict with dialogue. On the international stage, we replace confrontation with cooperation. When we practice it in this way, peace can spread like riddles, expanding from one person to the entire world. Finally, let us remember, one person's strength may be small, but when we act together, our power is immense. When you and I cultivate inner peace and live peaceful with others, world peace is no longer just an ideal. It can become a reality step by step. Thank you all.
Thank you, Anchen, for telling us first how you managed to overcome your natural anxieties, fears, and real ordeals in your everyday life by following the teachings of Dr. Hong when he was saying, for example, true peace is not just external stability, but also the ability to maintain calm and hope inside. And also, peace begins with every person's conscience and love, and it must be lived out in daily life. And finally, Dr. Hong also inspired you by saying that true peace comes from choices and actions we practice every day. And you also said that when each of us chooses to influence even one person with a calm and peaceful heart, the ripple of peace and love can spread far and wide. Thank you again, college student.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Ethan, and my topic for today is Conscience and Action from the International Day of Peace toward Lasting Love and Peace. Today is September 21st, 2025. 24 years ago, the UN General Assembly designated this date as the International Day of Peace. They declared that from then on, the International Day of Peace shall be observed as a day of global ceasefire and nonviolence, an invitation to all nations and people to honor a cessation of hostilities for the duration of the day. Since 1999, my Shifu, Dr. Hong Daozi, has led his Dizi to visit 120 countries around the world, inspiring 644 prominent leaders from 158 nations to ring the bell of peace and make wishes for peace. Among them are 82 heads of state and government, 15 Nobel Peace Prize laureates, UN ambassadors and officials, as well as other visionary leaders. In 2001, President Frederico and Menezes of Sao Tome and Principe rang the bell and pledged to act with the power of vow so that all children may smile, which he said was for children smile. 2 years later, in 2003, while he was abroad, a military coup broke out. Yet, after regaining power, he chose to forgive the rebels and actively promoted reforms, beginning stability to his world, to his nation. In 2002, President Abdoulaye Wade of Senegal rang the bell, expressing his wish that the government and people of Senegal and all people of goodwill around the world could work together to build and sustain peace. He put it this way: Senegal, its people, and the president, and all people of and the president want the peace to all women and men of goodwill to build and consolidate peace in the world. 6 years later, in 2008, he successfully mediated dialogue between the presidents of Sudan and Chad, leading to peace agreement and ended 5 years of hostilities and spared tens of thousands from the suffering of the world. In 2005, President Antonio Guzman Fernandez of the Dominican Republic rang the bell and wished that through greater understanding and respect among nations, humanity could cultivate a spirit of love and enduring peace. He expressed it this way: I wish the people from all over the world can understand each other and that love and peace can prevail. 3 years later, in 2008, when Colombia, Venezuela, and Ecuador were on the brink of war due to political conflicts, President Fernandez stepped in to mediate, diffusing the crisis with wisdom and earning international acclaim. These examples highlight the tireless and practical efforts to Dr. Hong and the deeds of Tai Ji Men in contributing to world peace. They also echo the theme of this year's International Day of Peace: Act now for a peaceful world. Through their dedication, this group has gained a strong international reputation and has also been recognized and commended by successive presidents and many local leaders in Taiwan. As a member, I feel deeply honored. However, despite its contributions, the very group has suffered persecution at the hand of unlawful officials. The human rights persecution incident of December 19, 1996, remains unresolved to this day. On July 13, 2007, the Supreme Court of Taiwan ruled that Tai Ji Men was innocent. It confirmed that they owed no taxes and had not violated the Tax Collection Act, and even granted state compensation for the wrongful imprisonment of Dr. Hong and Dizi. Later in 2019, the National Taxation Bureau corrected 5 out of 6 unlawful tax bills to 0. But one illegal tax bill was still unresolved. This led to continued coercive tax collection and even the unlawful auctioning of land designated for a Tai Ji Men spiritual center. Such blatant illegality has persisted for nearly 30 years, leaving Tai Ji Men unjustly persecuted. The world peace encompasses far more than the absence of war. It also means reconciliation, tranquility, agreement, justice, health, security, prosperity, equality, safety, good fortune, and friendship. While Taiwan has not been engaged in external war, injustice and inequality in governance have deprived people of true peace, robbed them from fairness, and taken away their smiles. How could such a superficial peace be called genuine peace? I call upon the government to face this issue squarely and to immediately correct its mistakes so that peace can begin within the nation and extend outward, allowing the vision of peace to spread to the whole world. I believe that conscience and action are both indispensable to realizing peace. In 2014, Dr. Hong launched An Era of Conscience movement. The establishment of a culture of conscience requires the awakening of all global citizens to bravely persist in doing what is right, to summon courage, and to remain steadfast to one's conscience. As world citizens, everyone has the responsibility and obligation to safeguard the environment in which we live. If we don't activate our conscience, we will hopelessly watch greed and exploitation drag the world into decline. May you and I, in the name of love, unite the power of goodness and take action together for humanity, for the world, and for the sustainable development of the earth, to realize a world of love and peace. I believe that the vast majority of people in the world long for peace, as long as each of us influences those around us. And as a university student myself, I will also keep peace and conscience in my heart. Whether in interacting with classmates or when encountering different opinions and perspectives, I will cast aside hatred and conflict and treating others with rationality and a peaceful mindset. World peace will not be far away. Only then will the establishment of the International Day of Peace truly hold practical significance. Finally, I pray for a world of peace, free from war, tyranny, exploitation, and persecution. And I call upon governments to govern with conscience, uphold justice, and redress the Tai Ji Men case, creating a better future for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan, for telling us the stories of 3 heads of states who were peacemakers in the difficult circumstances. After a military coup and his return to power, President Fradique de Meneses of Sao Tome chose not to take revenge, but to forgive the rebels and answered by actively promoting reforms, bringing stability to his nation. A good example. Another one, President Abdoulaye Wade of Senegal successfully mediated dialogue between the presidents of Sudan and Chad, leading to a peace agreement that ended after 5 years of war. And your last example of President Antonio Guzman Fernandez of the Dominican Republic mediated between Venezuela and Ecuador, which were on the brink of war. Very good examples that you chose to follow in our daily life. No revenge and no violence escalation, but every time dialogue to solve conflicts. Thank you again. And now I will give the floor to Jamie Ye, a logistics specialist. The floor is yours, Jamie.
Dear host and all online participants, good day. Today is the International Day of Peace. According to the 2001 UN resolution, it should be observed as a day of global ceasefire and non-violation. In today's chaotic society, peace is both precious and hard to achieve. True peace requires everyone's collective efforts. Just like this year's theme, Act Now for a Peaceful World. Everyone can take immediate action and start with themselves. Even a small act can help bring the world one step closer to peace. The United Nations has stressed that in the time of turbulence, turmoil, and uncertainty, it is critical for everyone to take concrete action to mobilize for peace. We must speak up against violence, hate, discrimination, and inequality. Practice respect and embrace the diversity of our world. However, the Qigong martial arts and self-cultivation group Tai Ji Men has suffered from human rights violations since 1996. Although the Supreme Court ruled in 2007 that Tai Ji Men was innocent of all charges, no crime, no tax evasion, and no violation of tax laws. To this day, the National Taxation Bureau has not complied with the court's final ruling. In collaboration with the Administrative Enforcement Agency, they illegally cautioned of land intended for self-cultivation center. Despite the government's persecution, Tai Ji Men has continued to persist and advocate for tax and legal justice. I began practicing Qigong and Tai Ji Men as a child with my parents. Born prematurely at just 7 months, I struggled with asthma and frequent illness. But after joining Tai Ji Men, my health improved a lot. I not only became physically stronger, but also had a big personality change. I was once shy and introvert, but with the encouragement of Tai Ji Men brothers and sisters, I participated in many activities and gradually became confident and outgoing. I've always been deeply grateful for everything Tai Ji Men has brought into my life. However, I rarely share this with my friends because I fear they might misunderstand Tai Ji Men after reading outdated or false media reports from 1996. Even when I wanted to share, I will often hesitate because I worry they might have negative perceptions. When I entered high school, I started participating in Tai Ji Men's cultural performance. I spent almost every weekend practicing. One day, when my friends were talking about what they usually did on weekends, I decided to share my practice and Tai Ji Men with them. To my surprise, they responded positively, even thought it was cool and asked me to show them the performance videos. What I had worried about for so long turned out to be something simple and well received. Since then, I've become more open to sharing things about Tai Ji Men, and I invite my friends to events so they can know Tai Ji Men better. What I learned most at Tai Ji Men is how to interact with others. Tai Ji Men is a place where people of all ages learn together. It is rare in other places to see people from so many different generations gathering in harmony. This has provided me with valuable interpersonal skills and logical problem-solving abilities. Every brother and sister has something I can learn from, and they often tell me that I can get along with people of all ages. It's a truly meaningful compliment for me. After entering the workforce, I've applied what I learned at Tai Ji Men in my job and in dealing with colleagues. I work in the logistics department of a department store and have to coordinate with various logistic companies and vendors. Previously, my colleagues often received customer complaints, but since I took over, our supervisor said that there hadn't been any. During peak business hour, multiple logistic providers arrive at the same time, and things become chaotic. Initially, I felt overwhelmed, but I began applying the calming techniques I learned at Tai Ji Men, prioritizing tasks and dealing them one by one. My team and supervisor praised my efficiency, and I was awarded Outstanding Employee just 1 year after joining the company. I believe this success is due to the cultivation of my mind and energy at Tai Ji Men. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to the United States with my shifu to attend the International Day of Conscience event. One moment that deeply touched me was when a guest shared that it was actually his wedding anniversary that day, but he felt that the International Day of Conscience was just as important, and he insisted on attending. He also shared his view on conscience and how he used it to create a positive impact in his field. That moment made me realize how essential conscience is to humanity, and that action led by our Shifu at Tai Ji Men are truly impactful and meaningful to the world. As of August this year, Tai Ji Men has visited 120 countries, spreading the message of love and peace. Shifu's deeds have let me feel that peace is more than just a word. It is something we can actually practice. Everyone plays an important role, even in the face of challenges and global instability. We must continue to move forward bravely. In conclusion, I sincerely hope that we can all guided by our conscience and respect each other. I believe that one day true peace will come. I also hope that the government officials responsible for the Tai Ji Men case will awaken their conscience, redress the injustice, and return our sacred land for spiritual practice. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you, Jamie, for insisting that in today's chaotic society, peace is both precious and hard to achieve, and that true peace requires action from everyone in a collective effort to act successfully for a peaceful world. Peaceful relations in daily life are also important, and the teachings of Tai Ji Men help you interact in harmony with people of all ages, as you said. Tai Ji Men is not a ghetto. Tai Ji Men provides the dizzy actors of peace with valuable interpersonal skills and logical problem-solving abilities. And I think that this needed to be stressed. Thank you again. And now I will give the floor to Kathy Wang, Section Manager, Quality Engineering, Semiconductor Industries. Floor is yours, Kathy. Technicians to create the link with us. Kathy link also has a very interesting testimony to share with us. We are waiting. Kathy, we are eager to see you and hear you. Hmm. Maybe it is coming. We have some technical problems today, but we are patient and peaceful. We will not destroy internet and be angry on it. We will wait until the full connection is restored. There are a lot of cyber problems around the world for the moment. Cyber attacks in Europe against our airports, disruption in Brussels, but also in airports in Paris. Maybe there are also some forces who don't like what we are doing and want to disturb us and our viewers and listeners.
I see her. She appeared, I believe.
Uh-huh. Yeah, we can see her, but she's been online for some time.
Yeah, Kathy, if you are online, I believe you can start. Yes.
Maybe our good friends, the organizer, can call her or send her a direct message because we can see her online, but probably she doesn't hear us.
Yeah.
I have a proposal.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps Marco can make his comments and then Kathy will speak after Marco.
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem with that. I was supposed to draw some conclusion, but conclusion can come first, the final testimony. So if it is all right for all of you, I can go forward.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this was supposed to be my conclusions, and on this very important International Day for Peace, which comes right after yesterday, of course, in the calendar. And yesterday, the Roman Catholic Church celebrated the Jubilee for justice within the framework of 2025, the year 2025, which is for the Catholic Church, Jubilee, so a big celebration, big religious feast going on for 1 year. And it's very significant that justice came yesterday and peace today. And today the Catholic Church also remembers, among many saints, a judge, an Italian judge who was killed by mafia in Sicily, and he became a blessed, and he gave his life for justice, true justice, not only legal justice. I mean, true justice. And I was very much inspired by these events for the few words I have prepared as a conclusion for today. I will start saying that, of course, we all know that the world is in great turmoil these days. Wars and divisions / humanity, often pitting neighbor against neighbor, siblings against siblings, and parents against children, and vice versa. We live in dire times because of the many conflicts that tear the world apart. Yet it seems that this is humanity's usual condition. According to the Judeo-Christian Bible, humanity started going astray right after the creation of the first man and the first woman, and a gigantic step forward in evil was rapidly made by one of the two sons that our progenitors and first sinners brought to life. Cain killed Abel. A brother slaughtered his own brother. Not an enemy, not a stranger, not an alien, his own brother, flesh of his flesh, son of his same father and mother. It was the first homicide in human history, and it was immediately outrageous. Different cultural and religious traditions around the world have similar tragedies contained in their holy scriptures, passed down through oral narrations and revived through myths and rituals. Settings, names, conditions, and details differ from one tradition to another, but the core remains the same. Humans are good beings who perform evil deeds. If we were to analyze the evil that human beings do in search of its essence, one cogent conclusion to which we would surely arrive is that the very nature of human evil is injustice. Homicide, brutality, war, and theft are all phases of injustice. So are pride, greed, lust, envy, gluttony, wrath, and sloth. Under one aspect or another, all crimes and capital sins that human beings can devise and perform subtract from and deny parts of the universal architecture of justice that governs the world as it should be. All human misdeeds are acts of injustice toward God, fellow human beings, and nature. Injustice may then be considered the real essence of human evil, and the supreme evil of injustice brings about ruptures, breaks, and splits. In other words, the contrary of peace. Peace is not some Arcadian utopia that exists only in dreams, never to be achieved in reality. Peace is instead the reign of justice. Of course, peace may be difficult to reach because human beings cannot perform perfect justice. Yet human beings should always aim for perfect justice to have real peace. They should always believe in perfect justice, advocate perfect justice, teach perfect justice, and operate as if perfect justice could be reached tomorrow. This is not another form of utopia. It is total abnegation in the name of an absolute moral value. The Tai Ji Men case is a concrete example of this philosophy. It is crystal clear that the injustice done to Tai Ji Men over decades causes inconveniences and distress incompatible with true peace, both to Tai Ji Men's chief or grandmaster and Dizzy or disciples and to Taiwanese society in general. Peace in society will never be attained unless the injustice done against Tai Ji Men is fully redressed. And it is also clear that half justice is only half peace, hence not real peace. In the face of the bloody wars that are mangling the world right now, many advocate for peace. A just peace, they argue, is impossible. So let us have at least something when we cannot have it all. That reasoning is motivated by the cruel spectacle of daily bloodshed that seems never to end. They think that asking too much will result in obtaining nothing. They are convinced that evildoers are so stubborn that they will never give up their violent acts. This may be a realistic approach, but it conceals a pitfall. Being content with a possible peace now can in fact be a compromise that preserves the status quo. But the status quo amidst injustice, a totally absurd and unlawful procedure as in Tai Ji Men case, or a crude war such as that waged by the Russian Federation against Ukraine, means conceding to the aggressor the retention of its position, i.e. its plunder. Advocates of a compromise peace maintain that a just peace is only an ideal aim, never to be attained, and that waiting for a just peace tomorrow instead of a potential peace now sacrifices too much on the ground. This position contains a grain of wisdom and should not be dismissed ideologically, but it should not be made an absolute. Should, for example, Tai Ji Men abandon its request for total justice to accept a mere compromise that, at the end of the day, secures the spoils for those who, for decades, have violated the law and disregarded the rulings of all levels of Taiwanese justice, including the Supreme Court? Could Tai Ji Men stop halfway, exchanging a quiet life for real justice? Could Tai Ji Men give up its property and sacred land, acquired at the price of personal and communal sacrifice by Shifu and Dizzy, and now illegally nationalized by the government? Someone would say yes, as an indispensable condition to obtain a decent level of tranquility and be left in peace. It is not a perfect peace, but again, a form of peace that is enjoyable now. Unfortunately, this is an illusion that often transforms itself into a blatant defeat. In international politics, this is called appeasement, and it has never achieved good goals. On the contrary, rogue regimes and governments have systematically lured their enemies into this trick to secure their objectives. In cases like Tai Ji Men's, appeasement would give two terrible impressions. The first is that these are not convinced of their own claims, and the second amounts to an invitation to those corrupt bureaucrats who have been harassing the movement for decades to continue their offenses. Enemies of justice and peace are ravenous subjects. If one gives them a portion of food, they want all the rest. If we provide them with the possibility of peace, they will devour the word possible to transform it into an unattainable peace. They will devour agreements and redouble injustice if we give them compromise justice. For this reason, and I conclude, the only peace that is possible is that offered by full justice. This is true in international politics, within disordered society, and all the more so in the Tai Ji Men case. total justice for a just peace for nothing. This is the only possible message on the United Nations International Day of Peace. And with this, I do thank you for your kind attention. We may be able now and ready to hear Kathy's testimony before going to the last musical video for today that will conclude our webinar. Give me a sign if Kathy can be listened to now, otherwise we will conclude with the musical video. Kathy?
Hello? Yeah,
Yep.
I think you can hear me now.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and
Go ahead.
gentlemen, since 2002, the United Nations General Assembly has designed September 21st as an International Day of Peace. The resolution declared this day as one of the global ceasefire and nonviolence, inviting all nations and people to halt hostility. The theme for 2025 is Action for Peace, our ambition for a global peace. In a day of turbulence and uncertainty, each of us must take meaningful steps toward peace. I became a teacher of Tai Ji Men in October 1995 when I was just 18, a freshman who had moved along from Kaohsiung in southern Taiwan to study in Taipei, the northern Taiwan. Practice Qigong at Tai Ji Men gave me a sense of belonging and warmth. Dr. Hong Daozhi, our Shifu, cared for every Dizi like a father. My brother and sister treat me like family. However, on December 19th, 1996, Tai Ji Men faced unjust persecution under the guise of religion crackdown. Persecutor Hou Kuan-ren abused his authority, launching a judicial persecution against Tai Ji Men, violating the principle of the confidentiality. In investigation, he led a media raid on our academy and released false information, smearing our reputation. Certainly, our once vibrant and welcoming academy became eerily quiet. Even more hateful, the persecutor Hou Kuan-ren, although no wrongdoing was found, the indictment absently include the phrase rising goblin, turning thousands of innocent Dizi into target of ridicule and discrimination. This justice deeply affected our life. I was asked by classmates where my ghost was. Some members lost their job. Family was torn apart, and others passed away under tragic circumstances. Riding my scooter to practice Qigong each week, I went from feeling proud to feeling ashamed, facing skeptical stares from the public. True, I knew we practice good Qi and cultivate virtue. The weight of slander was heavy. Some discourse was verbally abused in public. Even cars bearing our emblem was violence. It was a dark time for Tai Ji Men. However, our Shifu, Dr. Hong, continued to teach us to diligent, mindful, patient, and harmonious. He urged us not to be bound by injustice, but to brave walk into the world. On August 1st, 1999, He delivered a speech in San Francisco titled One Word, The Source of Happiness, stating, Tai Ji Men, love of the world culture, goodwill, legalization, choose the United States, the window to the world, as its first stop, hoping that people different regions and races, rich or poor, could share in joy and happiness we cultivate. On August 1st, 2025, at the opening of the Tai Ji Men Academy in Toronto, Dr. Hong delivered an opening speech entitled A Word of One Heart, Peace and Sustainability, reaffirming his commitment to spreading love, peace, conscience, and hope through holistic education by the legacy of this ancient empire. Dr. Hong has long embodied and practiced the idea of love and peace through concrete action. As of September 21st, 2025, he had led us to 120 countries, sharing the message of peace and love step by step. Through practice Qigong, I have learned to balance my body, mind, and spirit. Working in the high pressure semiconductor industry, 24 hours running battery for 25 years, I have fast charging where even a brief delay could cost tens or thousands of dollars. My daily practice gives me 20 minutes to connect with my inner spirit, helping me climb, face the problem, and find the solution. Each time I have changed the job, I have entered new field and overcome difficulty with reasonness and got top evaluation in my career. This year, both unexpected change to me. In April, I was laid off due to internal conflict within my former company. Thankfully, my former supervisor offered generous severance beyond the legal requirement. Despite a global economic slowdown in May, a former colleague introduced me to a new opportunity. Tai Ji Men teaches us to cultivate good energy and build sincere relationships. As a supervisor, I work alongside my team to solve problems, fostering a culture of mutual support and trust. People will help me. In July, I have the honor of traveling with 82-year-old Dr. Hong to 5 Caribbean island nations. Through cultural exchange, we touch the heart of those we met. A local guide shared that their ancestor was slaves. They survived unimaginable suffering. In moments of hardship, he draws shreds from their resilience. When he heard us sing the power of peace and love, he felt that even in the darkest time, there was light like us, who illuminated the world with love and conscience, guiding people toward the right path. Ladies and gentlemen, if each of us follow our conscience and does what is right without attempting to dominate and harm others, we can build a world free from fear, suffering, pain, and war guided by Dr. Hong. We also hope that justice will prevail and that the truth will be revealed, and that the innocence of Tai Ji Men will be restored. Thank you for your attention. May peace and conscience guide us all.
And thank you, Kathy, for reminding us that Dr. Hong uses every opportunity to preach love and peace around the world, as it was the case, for example, in the opening of the Tai Ji Men Academy in Toronto, and in every of the over 120 countries where he was invited. Any form of testimony is welcome. For example, just singing the power of peace and love. Just a song can move the audience, any audience, whether it is a crowd or one person, as it happened with a local guide in the Caribbean island whose ancestors had been enslaved, as you told us. And with this last testimony, we have come to the end of the webinar today devoted to peace and justice. No peace without justice for Tai Ji Men. And I think that we will now have a video to conclude it quite officially. Thank you.